Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the invisible framework that keeps absolutely massive industrial projects. We're talking refineries, power plants, you name it, from just completely falling apart into chaos. I mean, seriously think about it. It's one of the biggest challenges out there in engineering and construction. How do you possibly get everyone, from the accountant in the home office to the engineer standing in the mud on site, to speak the same language? Well, the answer, it turns out, lies in a special kind of code. Just try to picture the sheer scale of building one of these giant facilities. You've got designers, suppliers, contractors, and the client's teams all trying to work together. And if there's no common language for tracking costs, materials, and progress, well, communication doesn't just get hard, it completely breaks down. And listen, this isn't just some hypothetical problem. Imagine an engineer on site calls an activity site prep. At the same time, an accountant back at headquarters logs the cost as a capital earthworks asset. Now, they are talking about the exact same thing, but their records, they're never going to match. This creates a modern-day Tower of Babel, and it leads to huge confusion, tons of wasted time, and, yep, project failures. So, what's the fix? How do we solve this massive communication breakdown? It all comes down to something called a Project Code of Accounts, or COA for short. You can think of this as our Universal Translator. So what is it really? Well, think of it like the project's dictionary and its grammar book all rolled into one. It's a superstructured system that gives a unique code to every single cost, every resource, every activity. And what that means is that everyone, no matter what their job is, uses the exact same term to talk about the exact same thing. And that right there is the whole point. Its entire reason for existing is to create total clarity. It's literally designed from the ground up to prevent the miscommunication and the data nightmares that can sink a multi-billion-dollar project. Now, for a code of accounts to actually work, it's got to have these 4 key things down pat. You have to be crystal clear on who's going to use it and why. You need to know what information it absolutely has to hold. You need a solid structure for how the code itself is built. And finally, you have to make sure it's used the same way, consistently across the entire project. And get this. This isn't just some academic theory. These principles are battle-tested. They were built by taking apart and analyzing 21 different real-world codes of accounts used by the biggest owners and contractors in the business. So the framework we're looking at isn't just a nice idea. It's what actually works out there in the trenches. Okay, so while the COA is this universal language, different groups on the project often speak slightly different dialects. It's all based on what they need to get done. What's really fascinating here is the contrast. You've got the asset owners. That's the company that's going to own the plant in the end. They use the COA for the big picture, high-level financial stuff. They're focused on the long-term value of the asset for taxes and accounting. But the contractors, they're using it for the nitty-gritty of getting the project built, tracking costs for the piping crew, measuring how much concrete was poured today, and making sure their invoices are correct. It's the same language, but they're having 2 very different conversations. So how does this language actually work? What does one of these codes even look like? Let's pop the hood and break down the grammar and syntax of a typical code of accounts. Looking across all the real-world systems that were studied, the prime account is the undisputed king. This is the part of the code that defines the basic type of work. Think civil, piping, or electrical. It's really the core noun of our language, and you'll find it in over 75% of all COAs out there. Here's the key. You shouldn't think of a single code as just a word. No, it's more like a full sentence. It's a string of characters where each little part gives you a very specific piece of information, and all together, they tell a complete story about one particular cost. All right, let's build one right now. The code string usually starts with a project number. Easy enough. Then it might get more specific with the area or the unit inside the plant. Next up is that super important prime account, telling us, say, that it's piping work. Then you get an even more specific activity account like erect pipe. And finally, the cost type. Was this cost for labor or was it for materials? So when you put all those pieces together, you get this string of characters. And yeah, it might look a little complex, but it is incredibly powerful. This one single code tells a project manager a complete story. Which project, in what area, for what type of work, on what specific task, using what kind of resource. Every single cost on the entire project gets one of these unique IDs. And just like that, you have total clarity. So after all that, why does this detailed structure matter so much? What's the ultimate payoff for creating and enforcing this universal language on a project? At the end of the day, a well-designed code of accounts literally transforms chaos into control. It creates that common understanding we've been talking about, which saves an unbelievable amount of time. It lets you control costs and measure progress with pinpoint accuracy. It lets companies reliably compare how they're doing on this project versus others. And it gives you a crystal clear audit trail. All of this comes together for one purpose: to help deliver the project successfully. You see, a code of accounts is an invisible but absolutely vital framework. It's like the hidden operating system for building our modern world. And that really makes you wonder, what other essential invisible systems are out there that we rely on every single day without ever even seeing them?